The cyberpunk genre is not new to me or this channel. I've covered it in a few different ways, whether it be Akira the anime movie, Zon as it relates to the broader League of Legends lore, and even a little bit of Pokemon Colosseum, believe it or not. But one of the best and freshest takes that I've seen on the genre is Cyberpunk 2077, obviously serving great fashion style and aesthetics, so let's get into that. Hola, my name is X, and I like to experiment with fashion as well as talk about whatever the hell I want on social media whenever I feel like it. And in this video, I'm going to give you a pretty decent overview of the Cyberpunk 2077 franchise, going into some of its key features, concepts, and themes, just so that we're all kind of acquainted with what this has to offer as far as the genre is concerned, as well as set a good foundation for the broader conversation that I want to have on style and aesthetics. And then from there, we're going to move into the style archetypes that exist within Cyberpunk 2077, as well as some fashion designer brand parallels that I think kind of convey or emulate a little bit of that style and vibe. And then I'm going to wrap this up by going over some of the favorite styles or outfits of the various NPCs that exist within the game or the franchise. But before I get too deep into the overview on 2077, and in case you need a little bit more of like a 101 on Cyberpunk, especially as it relates to fashion, I recommend checking out the video Cyberpunk and Fashion, a video essay by the creator Corbin. There's like different parts on how culture kind of instituted fashion and like what that means for society, as well as like what the cyberpunk genre is, how it influenced culture, techwear, that was like this creator's personal style. So if you just need a little bit more of like a 101 or an intro on the genre, this is a good start. All right, now let's move into an overview of the Cyberpunk 2077 franchise and cover some key contextual elements. To start, the cyberpunk genre emerged within the 1980s, and it's essentially a blend of high-tech innovation and low-life societal struggle, which is a clear kind of showcase that we can see permeated across the different pieces of media that compose the cyberpunk franchise. Outside of the titles that I already mentioned at the top of this video, there are plenty of other examples that I'm sure 2077 took some cues or inspiration from, including Neuromancer, Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell. There's so many between the past few decades that you can visit to really get a sense of the concept and vibe of cyberpunk. But the game really has its roots within the tabletop RPG that was created by Mike Pondsmith in 1988 and published as Cyberpunk 2020 in 1990. Just another gift that the 1990s or like the late 80s provided us with, like so many gems that we can see lay the foundation for a lot of the great and favorite pieces of media that we celebrate today. So as we'll get to, particularly in the style archetype section, the 2077 game borrows a lot of the same, it's pretty much the same stuff, like the same setting, Night City, the same factions, locations, archetypes, etc. But it's nice to see how that's evolved from the beginning into now. Speaking of Night City, it is the heart of the Cyberpunk 2077 universe. It takes place in a fictional California metropolis, and it's the hub for the entire franchise, giving us such an immersive open world experience that was actually really interesting to kind of explore and unpack in greater detail. Just like any cyberpunk setting, it's a sprawling urban dystopia that is ruled by mega corporations, gangs, and is overrun by crime and political corruption. What makes this metropolis so multidimensional and such an interesting open world for players to explore and experience all of its different layers is the fact that it's broken out into very distinct districts, including, for example, Watson, Pacifica, and City Center, which all have their different kind of socioeconomic statuses and tiers, which only further conveys a little bit more of that segregated kind of one extreme to the next type of cyberpunk dystopian vibe. And we can clearly see key concepts like innovation, despair, and rebellion well present within this Cyberpunk 2077 universe, which only further echo the key themes and ideas of the cyberpunk and dystopian genre, which include transhumanism, social inequality, and rebellion and agency. How do you navigate this world where you kind of have to fight against oppressive sources, whether it be gangs or even mega corporations, and kind of carve your path between all of these different divides and these lines in order to make your way in an open open-ended city and world with really no rules and anything goes. But now shifting over more so into the technology and cybernetics piece, that is such a kind of cornerstone component within really any sort of cyberpunk genre piece of media, but really within the 2077 universe and franchise as a whole. And we can see that in the form of both cyberware and brain dance. Cyberware being the actual like implants or technological pieces that you can integrate within your human body. And then brain dance, which is like this virtual world, which we also know that kind of virtual reality and augmented reality are also signature components of some sort of advanced high-tech innovation society. And I think the role that technology and cybernetics plays within the 2077 universe is clearly seen within Cyberpunk Edge Runners. It's a really cool, fun, animated series on Netflix, but it is mature. So I love something that's like a little more kind of fun anime style and really good art style, but with a little bit more of that kind of adult orientation to kind of immerse you a little bit more and help you take seriously the amazing world building, storytelling, and narrative around this Night City metropolis. It not only helped me kind of understand some of the different socioeconomic kind of divides and tiers, but it also helped me better understand the role that cybernetics play in really influencing people's decisions and the paths that they can take. Everybody has cybernetics within this Night City world, almost practically, but there's some who adorn it really to further advance themselves and give them some sort of resource that can break them out of their really challenging circumstances or conditions, as we see with David, who's the main character and really gets involved with a cyberpunk gang. But we can see that there's a very strong slippery slope in using cybernetics and that it doesn't come without a cost, because it has a pretty much almost like a guaranteed high propensity to influence your nervous system, cause you to develop cyberpsychosis, and ultimately become a cyber psycho. And even though I don't plan on playing Cyberpunk 2077 because I'm really just not a first-person shooter person, I'm more so someone who needs a little bit of magic. I'm a mage class person, so I need some sort of like psychic element, supernatural piece, if at all possible. But the Edge Runner series definitely helped me appreciate, I'm sure, the immersive and incredible experience that players have within the actual 2077 game. All right, now that we've covered some key context around the Cyberpunk 2077 game and franchise, let's move into unpacking more behind the style archetypes that exist within the Night City world and universe, just to better appreciate those aesthetics and learn kind of what implication that has on the game. But first, I want to start by taking a look at some of the main style groupings that I think started within 2045, just because I feel like that sets a good step for us to move into the more kind of streamlined and simplified archetypes that exist within 2077. So there was like Bag Lady Chic, which was essentially people who are still kind of in lower class and poverty, but try to pull together some looks. Then we have Gang Colors, which is style just to convey that street authority and essentially, I'm sure, what kind of faction or group that you belong to. Then Generic Chic is really just that kind of everyday, highly accessible, standard, everybody can get into it. Think like H&M, like something that could look good. Then we have Bohemian, a little kind of different, just a little more individual, and I think kind of dabbles a bit, maybe a bit more into that kind of thrifty personal style. Then there's leisure wear, which is exactly what it sounds like. Athleisure is really kind of what comes to mind when I think about this, more utility and function. Then we have nomad leathers and just a little bit rough around the edges. Some clothes that some people might collect and kind of put on as they travel, a little more Western. We have Asia Pop, which is really something more so that the youth would wear. Japanese street style. It's even kind of pulled from Korea and Japan within this universe. Then we have Urban Flash, which is like the trendy, cool, hip, futuristic kind of style. Gives you a little bit more of that kind of intrigue. Business wear speaks for itself. It's exactly what you would expect somebody in corporate to wear. Something that's professional, buttoned up, polished, simplified. You know what that is. And then high fashion, obviously, which is the couture, the exclusive, only the high-end people have access to this. And I think it's very clear what this archetype evolves into within 2077. All right, so when we look at 2077, we have 4 main archetypes: kitsch, we have entropism, we have neo-militarism, and then we have neo-kitsch. And I'm gonna cover them one by one. All right, kitsch is style over substance. This is really prioritizing looking good, feeling good, capturing attention, really making a statement with your clothing over the quality of it, or necessarily kind of where it came from, or if it meets other people's standards. You're just trying to look good to you. It's very personal style, in my opinion, from what I was kind of gathering. So lots of bright, flashy, bold neon colors, holographics, things that are almost kind of a bit of a rebellious end to the neo-militarism kind of poverty and dystopia that people might find themselves in, which is like gray, muted, gloomy. People want to have a good time. Think brain dance, virtual reality, escapism. Like that's what people really want to channel and embody with their style. And I definitely think that when I first started my personal style journey, I was very much into the kitsch. I'm still kind of a little bit into it as far as like what I have access to. It's really just wanting to be express yourself. And not to say that these fashion designer brands are tacky or gaudy by any means, but I think that a couple of brands that kind of emulate this in your face, bright color, different type of style is GCDS. I've actually covered them with regard to One Piece, a little bit of collaboration that they had there. And we know that One Piece fashion is very diverse and eclectic. So I think that just some of their pieces are interesting in terms of the silhouette, the textures, the composition, a little bit more bold, but I feel like also pretty accessible, which when we think about some of the 2045 styles that were like the generic chic, but also the urban flash, I feel like it's a little bit of a mix between that. And I feel like an extension of that is a brand called Kappa. That's a little bit more like within the tracksuit and a little bit more of like the streetwear kind of style. But there's also nice bold colors, some experimentation in how some of these outfits and pieces can be brought together. So kitsch came first, but then after the Fourth World War, I believe it was, that's where entropism came into play. And the mantra there is necessity over style. These are people who are just trying to get through, make it day to day. And I really see strong parallels with Zahn from the League of Legends universe here, because that's a similar circumstance. While you have Piltover, that is like really focused on progress and innovation, you have people in Zahn who are scraping by having to use chemical technology and any sort of scraps that they can to replace body parts and augment their bodies in order to continue to advance and have greater capabilities. That's exactly what people within the entropism style archetype are like. They really lean on cybernetics to really just help them function in general, but also help them get the job done. They do not care about how they look. It's not focused on highly coordinated, cool outfits. They are as practical and functional as it gets. But if we were to think about this archetype a little bit more broadly, like what it embodies in terms of concept, it's edgy, it's raw, and it's rough around the edges. And so I think it captures, as far as 2045, a little bit of that bag lady chic and nomad leather. And so when we think about an elevated brand, which might be more contradictory to the core or essence of entropism, I think of R13. R13 is a fashion designer brand, and within their recent 2024 collections, I feel like it just really captures like this kind of a little bit thrown together, but is still chic, kind of rugged, down to earth, really neutral, maybe a little bit of pops of color, something that just gives a little more grunge. And so I definitely think that has some alignment with entropism. And there's also Palm Angels, which I've covered, I think at least once with regard to maybe Ken from Street Fighter. Something that's a little bit more kind of in your face and does give a little bit of that raw edge to it. Definitely more elevated, definitely a bit more kind of borderline kitsch, but I think that maybe for those who kind of find themselves out of their entropism strict circumstances and into something a little more kind of opportunistic, this could definitely have some alignment. Then we have neo-militarism. They are the opposite of kitsch. They are substance over style. They are definitely of the wealthier group, pretty much the corporate angle. and the kind of strong arm military angle that exercises authority over the Night City society and population. They are in control. And so they exert that authority and kind of credibility through these very clean, uniform, even-esque type of styles. So that's where the kind of, I would say leisure wear, because that was a little bit more kind of function focused, but as more particularly the business wear from 2045, that's what this really evolves into. Something that is just very well put together, high quality materials, can get the job done, convey the purpose, the professionalism, but only the highest quality materials. They don't care about being flashy. They don't need to make an expressive statement. They're in it for the business, they're in it for the politics, and they're in it for the control and the power and the dominance. And so when you're doing that, you don't need to focus about trying to convey a certain vibe. You've already got the order, you've already got the structure. Who really cares about that when you have the basis of your business covered? And so when I learned about them, I immediately thought, Hugo Boss. Like, I just couldn't help but to immediately go to Boss. Not to say that they are necessarily as boring or maybe as strictly kind of plain and stripped as neo-militarism can be, but there is an emphasis and a certain tone of authority there and quality, and definitely a certain kind of clean, polished aesthetic. And there's also Zegna, specifically the Tech Merino line, where that feels like it has a little bit of that tech wear influence synthesized or kind of combined with some of that more corporate polish and uniform and suit orientation. There's definitely an interesting futuristic kind of spin to this style. But then we have a neo kitsch, which is style and substance. This is definitely more my vibe, even though I'm not anywhere near the top 1% of anything. But these are people who existed within that wealthy world, surrounded by the grayness and the plainness of the neo-militarism. But they wanted to tap back into the core of what kitsch is, which is about being expressive and standing out and being in contrast to the standard status quo look of the society and those who are in control. And so neo-kitsch, the people who are the celebrities, the influencers, the stars of the world, they to help them further stand out, they're just like, let me tap into that kitsch. Let me use my money to get the quality items. And here we have this style archetype. They are the elites, they are the exclusive, they are the couture. And there is strong parallel to like our real world, where you have like people within these offices and everything, definitely familiar with that world in my experience, who are just really more so focused on the function. Then you have the people who are just like, you know what, I have a personality, I have an identity, and I'm gonna take my privilege and my stance and I'm gonna elevate. And that's neo kitsch. And I'm gonna mention them, I've mentioned them plenty of times and I'm gonna mention them again, Balmain. All right, Balmain is just so versatile, plays with so many different structures, textures, silhouettes, so many different components of high fashion, but manages to maintain this air and level of strong sophistication and exclusivity and eliteness. I even have a pair of Balmain unicorn sneakers that are just so interesting and futuristic. It's just nothing like it. And I feel like that's something that neo kitsch is definitely about. But then there's also Schiaparelli, who is very creative and almost architectural with some of their pieces, but gives a strong sense of luxury, as well as art, which I feel like is, and through art is expression, which I feel like is a key part of kitsch. So, but it's obviously very, very high end, very couture. And so that's, I think, perfect alignment with neo kitsch. All right, now that we've gone through those style archetypes, that was an interesting conversation. Let me know how that came across, because I kind of was like going on the fly with it. But now that we've covered all that basis, let's now move into looking at these actual characters, NPC wise, to kind of not necessarily identify what archetype they fall into, but really just appreciate their outfits and their style and their vibe. All right, let's start with Panam Palmer. I love just kind of like that rugged fitted bodysuit situation that she has. It gives a strong sense of utility, but it also definitely gives an air of futuristic. We're getting a little peak of body confidence. And I just really like the different kind of color blocking, or at least like the pattern and design within the different pieces that she wears. Someone who's a bit of function, but with a little bit of flash. And we have Evelyn Parker, like literally one of my favorite characters. Like, what in the world? Just the incredible different textures we're getting. We're getting like sequin dress with interesting belt details. But then we're also getting like a leather or latex or PVC jacket with incredible colorful fur collar and trim details. But then those thigh-high like red boots. There's so many different colors going on here. And then in concert with the hairstyle and hair color, how is it that some of the baddest bees always have a bob? Like, she just is so nonchalant, badass. Love everything about her style. Then there's Bridget, who I'm not usually into such a gray, muted, gloomy look, but I really can't help but to appreciate hers, because I just really feel like there's interesting layers and interesting dimension to her style, as well as yet again another kind of play on textures, but in a different way. More puffy, quilted, and ridged type textures, and even just like a little bit of the silvery kind of metallic complement to some of those kind of softer, kind of plain and flat grayish brown colors is also just a nice kind of contrast. Feels elevated, but also feels, I don't know, just feels like it's in a really interesting gray zone. Misty, I love her alternative style. Love the over the shoulder kind of distressed ragged sweater, and the choker is obviously really cool and alternative and punky, but she reminds me of Sarah Paulson's character. I think her name's Sally from American Horror Story Hotel. I just immediately see this. Like, I see her when I look at this character, like, is this actually Sarah Paulson? Like, it's cool. I love it. It's nice. Great accessory. Great. Then we have Judy Alvarez, and her style is so simple. Also kind of giving me a little bit of that kind of nomad leather situation, just because it seems like it's literally a pair of black leather overalls, which look so sick. Simple, but with some subtle utility kind of elements to it. And then just a little bit of body confidence to show the nice tattoo style that she has in her hair. So just really feels very individual. Dexter Deshawn, love his style, actually, especially for a bigger build character. It's really just the vest and the gold elements that give him some strong statement. I've said before how I feel like when you're a bigger build, like, it's nice to have, if you could have like a bigger, wider, some sort of like outerwear to kind of help bring your silhouette in a little bit. And I feel like my attention is immediately drawn to that vest that he wears, and the sunglasses are really sick. So such a fresh style that he's rocking with. Keanu Reeves, Johnny Silverhand, that's crazy. Such a simple, rugged style. Love the coordination between the sunglasses and the pants, and just love the leather texture of the pants in general. And then even the boots are kind of fashionable. If they were any sort of like less pointy, more kind of rounded boot, like combat boot style, it might have actually decreased the elevation that this outfit has, but there's just some sharp accessorizing that I think takes this up a notch in combination with the obvious silver cybernetic arm that he has. River Ward is crushing it with the jacket. That jacket is just such a strong statement piece that he has on. Some good accessorizing as well with like the belt and the necklace, in concert with a strong statement jacket with great fur detail and texture. Only really takes it up a notch. Carrie Uridine seems like he's been rocking with some great style for many decades. Is just rocking a signature leather vest. It seems like that's core to his personal style, with like a tank and some great hardware and accessories to complement. Very punkish, very kind of bad boy rock star a little bit. So all Cunningham's outfit isn't like, whoa, super crazy standout, but I just like the simple, effortlessly cool girl, cool lady that we're rocking with here. Love the layers to her jacket. It's kind of multi-dimensional. Love a little bit of like the midriff that she's showing, but then also just the distressed pants. Just feels very everyday, but also just feels like she just kind of threw it on. She doesn't have to try very hard. Mr. Hands' suit is incredible, and he also, I feel like, looks like he has some cybernetic fingers. So those are a great example of how that can serve as a nice accessory, maybe in addition to any function that they have. But it's really just that suit is just incredible. Seems just love the color of it, and love the different kind of band and hardware details around it, and love the lapel. Just so classy and elevated and just high sophistication. Lizzie Wizzy is, wow, literally out of this world. Full cybernetic fantasy. Love just how her full hardware body just is in great contrast to that bright pink hair. Love a bubblegum pink hair girly, and I feel like that's exactly what she's giving us. And especially when she's wearing items with like fur or some sort of texture, immediate contrast, just showing that cybernetics can serve as a strong aesthetic piece to someone's overall style. Oshima, I believe he's really just a super passive, like super secondary NPC character, but I really just like his jacket and his pants. I just feel like they're really interesting statement. Once again, great texture. We just have so many great different fabrics and materials that compose the clothing of the characters within this universe. Same thing with El Capitan. I just really feel like it's that shimmery kind of metallic aspect to some of these clothing items that just feels so interesting and easily elevated, but also gives that futuristic twist. But I think that's a nice contrast to the fanny pack that he has, which kind of almost gives a little bit of a retro 80s vibe. So I just kind of like a little bit of that retro future style. Hanako has two great looks that I think are just so absolutely chic, especially given how simple they are. Obviously the first white dress that she has, and that they really just showcase the great kind of gold hardware that she has within her fingers and even around her arms. Just so effortlessly chic and timeless. But then it looks like she also has like a red dress with like this kind of gold chest and neck component to it that obviously only further enhances the gold accessories that she has throughout her body, but just really gives her a little bit more edge and a little bit more bite. So I don't have too many like corpo neo-militarism type people in this group. I feel like maybe Meredith was close to kind of someone who I wanted to cover, but her outfit's kind of really plain. What I like about Arasaka's is the vest that he has. It almost seems like it has like some cutouts within this component of it around like the upper body. But he also has like, I think another jacket that has some kind of silver metallic detail to it. So even for someone maybe within a bit of that kind of corpo neo-militarism realm, I feel like his outfits have just such subtle elements of character to them that makes it feel a little bit out of the box from maybe how some of the other people within this archetype dress. Maiko is obviously stunning within her outfit. Like, never seen really anything like this jacket or this top that she's wearing. Love like almost like the scale like details that are happening, but still have a little bit of that metallic kind of sheen and shine and design to it. When the sleeves with the fur is obviously in direct and incredible contrast to that. So, and then coordinates perfectly with the skirt. Love this outfit on her. Then we move into Phantom Liberty with Idris Elba. Like, this is wild, the celebrity cameos. Or Solomon Reed. Love his core look, just with a nice strong statement leather jacket, but the lapels in the kind of more burgundy or maroon color with a little bit of that quilted texture to it. Such a great contrast. Once again, like loving the different textures and materials that we're dealing with, but also love the kind of bands or belts that he has going across his chest. And I think I see also another look where he's wearing, it seems like almost like a purplish suit jacket with, once again, some great kind of shimmer or metallic or sequin details to it, and a nice statement, might be gold necklace. It's hard to see in some of the lighting of the screenshots, but love a little bit of that range that this character can pull off. Rosalind Myers, for someone who's so political and corporate looking, it's almost giving a little bit of like Star Trek tracksuit, but it just also feels like such an interesting futuristic power suit in general, with just enough kind of patch of gold detail to keep things interesting and really convey a sense of high authority and high luxury and quality and substance. So definitely feel like, and especially with the shades, like she's cool. Lena Molina is like in your face, vibrant, bold, like strong personality with this clothing. And it feels like it blends some of that utility and function with flash and style. So I really love that she's playing in that realm a little bit. especially with like the accessories like the sunglasses and the gold sleeves or gloves, like just such strong in your face, bold personality. Then we have Aguilar. What I particularly appreciate here is the version with like the 3-piece suit. Just very much gives like mobster kind of boss man energy, but really it's that fedora with the gold trim. Black and gold is a timeless, luxurious combination, and Songbird style almost kind of reminds me of a variation of Pan Am Palmer's style, where it's definitely functional, definitely utilitarian focus, just with like the utility belt and just some of those accessories. But I just really like how it still has a layer of fashion and style, like a cropped jacket, a very strong form fit silhouette, and just some almost like a little bit of ombre kind of like gradient color effect that kind of mirrors her hair a little bit. And that's my coverage of Cyberpunk 2077. I thoroughly enjoyed, especially looking at some of these style archetypes and just better appreciating the universe and the world of Night City. Hope you did too, and if there's anything that really stood out to you, let me know in the comments. But until the next video, I'll talk to you later.